Hey, Thunder Nation, this is RK Anthony, and as you can see, I'm not alone tonight. I'm with the guru, I'm with the man, the Welcome to Loud City site manager, J.A. Sherman. J.A., I really appreciate you joining me so we could talk a little Josh Huestis tonight.
That sounds good. He's been a player that has been generating a lot of discussion at Welcome to Loud City in terms of his impact, his potential, and it's good to see that a kid that he was pretty much an unknown when the Thunder drafted him to be even having these kinds of conversations.
It's interesting you call him an unknown. I actually went back into the old Phil Nason archives and found an episode that right after the draft in which you and Phil talked about that particular draft, and we didn't even know how to say his name. I think you said his name, Heistis.
Yes, I may have called him Josh Heistis
You were
for
you were
like
you,
30
you
minutes.
it was actually Phil that said it first.
Okay.
Just to cut you some slack, it was Phil that called him Heistis first. I mean, other than Draft Express and the people that research the draft religiously, and follow these kids from the time they're in high school. Nobody knew who this kid was.
Hmm.
And then the first time Thunder fans get to see him is he's being picked, and everyone's shocked. Social media goes crazy. Um,
Yeah,
can
I
you
mean,
remember what some of the things that were being said about that trade, or I'm sorry, that draft pick back in
yeah, it was,
2014?
you know, when you look back on it in terms of the totality of the story, it's pretty funny at how aggressive a whiplash that everybody got, because the Thunder are savvy drafters. They may not always pick the right person, but they go into the draft thinking about a couple of things. They think about talent, they think about potential, they think about salary cap flexibility and roster flexibility more than most, in part because they have a functional developmental team that they actually use to shuttle players in and out to figure out if they have NBA potential. And so when they drafted Josh with, I can't remember, what pick was he in the
29th pick.
29th? So he barely made it. He barely made it into the first round of the draft,
Wasn't
which
that the
meant,
same draft that Mitch McGary went number 21?
yeah, that was up in smoke, isn't it?
Yeah, that it's interesting who survived that draft, isn't it?
Yeah. And so he barely makes it in. And of course, what that means when you get drafted in the first round is that your contract is guaranteed, as opposed to second rounders who may have a lot of potential. And one guy that I have to mention, even though he's a bit of a persona non grata, is Draymond Green. He was a second round guy, um, and he earned his way. But by avoiding the second round, you are able to essentially lock in the rookie scale contract. You've guaranteed yourself a very healthy income for a couple of years, and a shot to make a team. And so that's what happened with Josh Eustace. He um, he was able to do it, but the how it actually happened is what really upset some people. Do you remember how exactly that happened?
Well, the perception was that the Thunder were taking advantage of some poor kid so they could avoid the paying luxury tax.
Hmm.
And then we find out about a week after the draft that it was actually Josh Heistis and his agent that manufactured the whole thing first by going through the players union, making sure it was okay with them. Remember, you had some concerns about that. How were they going to respond? Then we
Yeah.
find out he'd already paved, smoothed the way through there, and then they sat down with Sam Presti, and it was their deal. It was their
Yeah.
offer.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing how aggressive it went from the Thunder are taking advantage of this poor college kid who's a borderline guy just to save some money, and social media came down pretty hard on the team. If you remember that, how dare they draft and stash a player when they really don't have any ever any intent to play him or anything. But then as it eked out that, oh no, not only was it his idea, but it's actually a really savvy thing to do for a young player, because here's what it meant. It meant that one, he was guaranteed a healthy salary. Two, it meant that he was guaranteed at least 3 years to make an NBA roster. And so what? But it did cost him something. So we cannot forget that it did cost him something. It cost him year one salary. So he was making a really low salary in his first year as he immediately went to play for the Blue.
Just to put that what that cost him into exact numbers, he played for the Blue for 25,000.
Hmm.
In the show that you did with Phil, Phil was under the impression he could go overseas and make $1 million. The fact of
Hmm.
the matter was, the best deal that his agent was able to work out overseas was $80,000. So it wasn't a massive amount that he lost, but he did lose some. But
Yeah,
he could have made more if he just stayed in his own profession. The kid has a degree in psychology.
yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what the standard of living is in Oklahoma City, but yeah, you're tooling around with other NBA players. There is a certain lifestyle expectation, I'm sure. So that was hard. But this kid said, you know what? It's worth it for me to live, you know, well, you know, well below the means I could have had elsewhere to earn a shot to make an NBA team and actually have a very, very lucrative career. And he did it.
Well,
He played,
one
you
of the
know,
things that you touched on earlier, what you mentioned, Draymond Green, and as much as I hate to say anything positive about Dirty Dre, uh, I think it's safe to say when we look at Draymond Green, he is just one that fell through the cracks.
mhm.
He should have been a first round pick. Josh Huestis knew going into this that he was not a first round quality player, that he may not even get drafted. That was what was his motivation to make this happen. As you said, to buy him that time, he needed to develop. And because when you look when I look at this kid's numbers from college, he couldn't shoot. He was strictly a defensive player. The Thunder already had Andre Robertson that was set to be the heir apparent to Cephalosha.
Mhm.
Why pick another player like like Andre Robertson when you're already too deep in that position already? I mean, if you're Sam Presti, what do you think was was the key thing for Sam to sit back and say, "I'm going to do this"?
I think that because we have to remember that Houston had something to offer Sam Presti that was of value to him, and that was salary flexibility and roster flexibility, and that means something for the Thunder, who, at that time seemed to be a little bit more cost sensitive than they are now, uh, to say the least. And so, um, so he had something of real value to offer the team, and so using that as the first bargaining chip, he does have an NBA body. He's long, he's athletic, he's strong. He's obviously well grounded in his just emotional state, having with a willingness to undergo this kind of process. Um, and I think at that time the Thunder were still locked into this. We just need to find athletic wings to be able to play alongside number 35 to guard the LeBron James of the world and guys like that.
We just can't get away from that guy, can he? He's still part of the narrative, isn't
He
he?
is. He always will be. And so he used to seem to fit the bill. And if it didn't pan out, the worst that they were going to lose was a rookie contract for a low, low draft pick. And so it made a lot of sense in the aftermath. And so it's not surprising that the kid is a Stanford graduate, and he and his agent were able to conjure up this kind of thing, and that Sam Presti found value of it, and they made it happen. But we didn't know for a while whether it was actually going to turn out to be fruitful. I mean, it was a risk adverse move in a lot of ways, but we didn't know if it was actually going to play itself out. And for the first couple of years, it was still kind of rocky.
Well, there was something that in your discussion with Phil that you brought out that he was actually genuinely, excuse me, surprised about, was the fact that Josh Eustace was only willing to make that deal with two teams,
Yeah, and what were those two teams? The Thunder and who else?
and the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, shocker.
Because like Phil, you and Phil both agreed on this. This was a huge risk for Josh Houston to take on his future, but he trusted that whatever handshake deal he makes with Sam Presti or with the general manager with the San Antonio Spurs, which Sam Presti is a product of the San Antonio Spurs, he knew they would stand by it. And kind of want to go in a different direction other than the dollars and cents and the opportunity that it gave Josh Huestis. But I think that also to Sam Presti, I think the fact that this kid offered that deal and showed that trust also played into it as well, because as was discussed in your discussion with Phil that night, the Thunder's reputation wasn't the most stellar at the time. A lot of
Yeah, for
people
sure.
thought they were, a bunch of shysters. They stole the team. I'm the champion of the truth on that. On the Seattle Supersonics were like a low hanging fruit. That any businessman worth his salt would have picked. But um, at the time though, that it was not a popular move. Around the world, and they just saw this as another example of the Thunder taking advantage of somebody. And I think Sam Presti looked at it as that, hey, this means something. This kid is showing trust. He's looking past the national narrative. I think Josh Eustace did his homework, obviously, before he made
Yeah,
that offer.
I think the trust is a big thing, something that we've seen again 2 summers in a row with Russell Westbrook, that he values, that the franchise values to a very high degree. Um, and Hustis was a raw product. He wasn't a blue chipper coming out of UNC or Kansas or something like that. He was coming out of a Stanford environment, where he wasn't really that well known, and he was pretty unrefined as a pro prospect.
Well, he
And I
played
think
power forward. He was a close to the basket guy. I think his first season with the Blue, he shot 318 uh, from three. He actually dropped 5 points his second season, dropped down to 313. But you could see that he was trying to do it right. The
yeah.
the shot looked good even though it wasn't dropping.
Hmm.
And I think he trusted the system, and I think a direction that because I'm sidetracking from kind of the direction I was going. That once the Thunder made that commitment to do that, how much of a commitment do you think the Thunder felt like that they? How far do you think they had felt like they had stuck their neck out? Put their reputation on the line, so that how invested were they in seeing Josh Huestis succeed?
Well, I think you can look at it on 2 different levels, one of which has actually been a point of conversation on the site as of late, and that is, do the Thunder develop players? And first, I have to say, and I think hopefully, if you've been a fan of the NBA for a while, you would know this to be true as well. It's really, really hard to develop players who are not blue chippers. To find something within them that you can actually manifest into an NBA level quality that can build them into a 10-year career type of player. It's really, really hard, and the league is scattered with players who just didn't make it.
As
Um,
the good book says, you can't make a silk's purse out of a sow's ear. But you can at least make it smell good.
Yeah, and so Houston, he's definitely that kind of player where he's got the length, he's got the body, he's got the agility and all those things, and decent shooting mechanics. But it was incumbent on the Thunder to actually develop that into something that was valuable, not only in the trade market but actually on the court, which is an entirely different thing on its own. And so he's a great example of what happens when a team understands the long game in developing players and knowing that they're not going to be ready in year one, they're not going to be ready in year two, maybe year three. And so here we are in 2017, and it looks like Houston is ready to make the leap and get rotation minutes.
And I definitely do not want to be remiss in giving credit where credit is due. You know, Josh Houston's put in obviously a tremendous number of hours with very little thanks, very little glory, playing down in the D League to get himself in the position that he is today.
Absolutely, absolutely, and and it was not a guarantee. It was never going to be a guarantee that he was going to be able to suit up and play alongside Westbrook and Steven Adams and those guys. He had to earn it every step of the way. And I had the privilege, and a couple of other of our writers had the privilege of actually seeing Eustace up close and personal when we went down to the Orlando Summer League for a couple of years, and we got a chance to see what he's like up close. And I got to tell you, even a year ago, he didn't look like he had it. He looked hesitant. He didn't really look like he knew where he was supposed to be on the court. He didn't know how to use this amazing physical gift that he has to just run up and down the court. And I mean, he's an incredible leaper, and he's got decent defensive instincts. He didn't look like he belonged in the NBA, and yet this summer we see something totally different. What has stood out to you in his on-court presence?
Just the way he moves, it moves with confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Watching him, when they were in summer league, uh, the previous summer, um, just watching him move around the court, he seemed tentative,
Mm-hmm.
indecisive,
Yep.
and he definitely looked much more focused this summer. You could tell he was out there with a purpose in mind. He
Mm-hmm.
was, he was getting ahead of the game. He
Mm-hmm.
was ahead of the game, especially in summer league. I thought he played really well in summer league, and then it carried right over into the preseason. A
Mm-hmm.
few passes got away from him. I think he wants to be careful to remember that he's not in the D League, and if you're going to throw a lollipop, just better just to eat it. But it's just that's just part of the learning curve. That's just something that he'll get out of that in no time. I have no doubt. But
Yeah,
his
and
shot is solid. I really think he has the confidence to step up and take a big shot in the NBA without choking. I think
yeah,
trusting
absolutely.
his mechanics. I know at the end of 2000 and let's see, was it 2015? When was it that they let Josh get in and shoot some shots? Was it at the end of 2016? Yeah,
Yeah, 2016
you
because
know,
yeah, I think so.
but he comes in, and he I think he went 2 for 2 from 3-point land in one game, and I think he maybe hit three in another, and then 1 for 2 in another. I mean, this kid looked like he's a world beater from three. But at that point, did you think he was ready to be in the NBA?
No, because like you said, it was all about the tentativeness. He didn't really look like he knew where he was supposed to be on the court, and that was true even in the summer league and in somewhat for playing for the Blue, which is I think what speaks to me the most is that he just looks like he knows where to go on the court right now. And the end of the preseason game against Melbourne is a great example of that, where the team was obviously struggling against a weaker opponent. They weren't shooting the ball well. They had to protect their rim on a number of occasions, and he just went up and blocked the shot on multiple occasions to preserve the win.
Those were
Uh,
perfect blocks too. His timing was impeccable. It was
yeah,
impeccable.
and it's important that he was in the moment. The coach trusted him to be in the moment to get those stops. That he reacted correctly. That he did it without fouling. That's a big deal. Um, and what I loved the most was after that game was over and they were kind of running off the court. His teammates were over there, getting on him and saying, "Hey, you saved that win for us." They saw what he had,
Absolutely.
and they knew that they hadn't seen that from him before. And if he can keep doing those types of things, that means a lot to the team.
Yeah, I think that the influence of having, Carmelo Anthony and Paul George in camp is also. I think I seen. He looks more confident right now than he did in the blue white game.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He still looked a little lost to me in the blue white game. I thought, because because I know the kid's not lazy, so I can't put it down to lazy, but it almost looked lazy because it seemed like he wasn't sure of himself. But you
Hmm.
can just see the influence that, and I think Carmelo Anthony is probably the guy that he would levitate to. I think they both are kind of that deep thinker type,
Hmm.
and I think Melo has pulled something out of Josh that because as you said, from the Houston game, then to the Pelicans, he looked a little better. Then he looked, gets the big blocks against Melbourne, and then he looked really good against the Pelicans. I mean, against the Nuggets. Looked really good. And at that point, I'm like, this kid's got a job.
Yep.
He's made it. He's in the NBA. And 3 years ago, we didn't even know his name. We couldn't even say his name. I think it's a tremendous success story. I really do.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where it goes, and see how the fan base reacts to him. I mean, if you think about it, this guy is made to run next to Russell Westbrook. Yeah, he's long, he's athletic, he can catch the lobs. He's made to be out there with an engine like Westbrook, and so I want to see that opportunity.
So I think the Thunder are going to be well set. I think Josh Houston is going to play a big role in it. I think we'll see his minutes build as the season goes on, as Billy Donovan gains more and more confidence in him.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I love success stories, and I like seeing uh, players' patience and hard work pay off.
Oh yeah. Well, anyway, Ja, I sure appreciate your time with me here. We're gonna wrap this up. I know you got things to do. You look like you're about to fall out of your chair right now. I know they've been working you hard there on the East Coast. So
It's okay.
we're gonna say goodnight, and I appreciate your time with me.
All right, thank you so much.